is Motorsport Radio.
Hello and welcome to another Motorsport Talks live on Motorsport Radio. We are talking about the 60s where a young Queen Elizabeth sits on the throne, the Who was taking hold, and we were being restricted to 70 miles an hour. Joining me 60 years ago is the master of discussion, the god of enthusiasm, and the king of dulcet tones. It's Ross. How you doing?
Not bad, thanks, mate. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. I think I'll need to try and outdo that later on the F1 Talk Show. But yeah, great to be here once again for the Motorsport Talk Show. And of course, live on camera as well. So this will be interesting to see how it goes. But of course, as you said, talking about the 60s and, because it's the Goodwood Revival coming up.
It is indeed, and we're going to kick off the show with the on-track action, of which there is loads. The joys of Goodwood Revival is it is practically a day of racing for 3 days. So what normally happens is obviously Friday is the practice and qualifying, Saturday and Sunday are the races where all these historic cars, famous people, take to the track, and we can all watch and go ooh and ah and see the cars slide in and then laugh when they mess it up. But this year, because there's more races than have ever been before, we are kicking it off on Friday. So, Ross, what is the first race on the agenda?
Well, glad you asked, Josh. First up, we've got the Sterling Moss Trophy, a 60-minute race with a classic cars such as the Jag E-Type lightweight coupes, the Ferrari 250, SWB, and the AC Cobras it's a 60s GT race, isn't it? What is not to love? So if you're into your more classic GTs, and let me tell you, if you're not, you should be, because they are some of the absolute best, on-track action you can find, overpowered, overweight, undergripped. It is fantastic, and boy, are they noisy as well. So I would definitely recommend checking that out, of course. And if you're lucky enough to go to the Revival as well, it is one that you cannot miss. So Friday, Sterling Moss Trophy. That's the only race we've got then. But then on Saturday, well, we've got a few things going on. We've got the Battle of Britain Trophy, which is one thing, a 25-minute race for Grand Prix cars from the 30s and 40s to celebrate 70 years since the Festival of Britain. It is on London South Bank. So that's if you're into your more classic Grand Prix cars as well, that's one to watch out for. Then the Barry Sheen Memorial Trophy, Part 1, that is. Grand Prix motorcycles from the 50s and 60s. Another 25-minute race there. And you've got bikes such as the Manx Norton, the MV Augusta. Again, if you're a classic bike enthusiast, another one. I mean, it's the Goodwood Revival. Everything there is just something you've got to see. But again, absolutely a stunning lineup there by the looks of things. And then the St Mary's Trophy Legends as well, another 25-minute race, a highlight of the weekend as well in general. And it's some of the best touring and GT drivers behind the wheels of 50s British Saloon Championship cars. We've got Mini Coopers, we've got Studebakers, we've got Cortinas, we've got them all. It is again just another kind of classic touring car race, 25 minutes long. Maybe not so much wheel banging as they would have done in a day, because those panels are a bit priceless nowadays. But I'm sure they'll be giving it a good go as they always do. And then finally on Saturday as well, we've got the Whitson Trophy, another 25-minute race. And this has officially been labelled as the loudest race of the weekend. We've got classic prototypes going. We've got Ford GT40s, Lola T70 Spiders, and McLaren M1s. So if you're into getting your eardrums ruined, that's the one to watch.
Yes, it definitely is. And the St Mary's Trophy one, this is one of the big highlights. It's basically as close you're going to get to a British touring car race. And it's like the touring cars was back in the 50s. You get the Mini Cooper S's, quick and agile through the corners, but very underpowered down the straights. And then you get the big Ford Galaxies, the Studebakers, the Camaros, the Mustangs. They will then fly down the straights. And then it's a matter of, do you brake? When do you brake? You've missed your braking point. It's not stopping. Slide it round the corner. Hope for the best. While the Mini, they just sort of go wherever they want to go. They're these little gnats that just swarm around the place, which is love. The Whitson Trophy, this is a unique race. It's happened a few times at Goodwood Revival. And we get a mixture of Can-Am races and the GT40 Le Mans races. So you've got a mixture of the two. And obviously Can-Am, of course, American racing, very lightweight 600 kilogram race cars with 7, 8, 12 litre V8 monsters shoved into the back. So it is just insane. We finished off the day with a one-off race. This is to celebrate the 60 years of the fantastic Mini Cooper S. We all know a Mini. We've all wanted a Mini. The majority of us listening and watching would probably have driven a Mini at some point or other. Well, this one's got 30 of them racing, and they're raced by some of the greatest racing drivers of all time. So you'd expect lots of overtaking, lots of slipstreaming, lots of flying past, sideways action, lots of entertainment. It's just going to be one of those races where everyone's going to want to watch it. It's going to be one of those memorable ones. And then we'll finish it off with the more glamorous of the races, called the Sussex Trophy. And it's where we see the endurance races of the 50s, so the cars that raced down Le Mans before it became a purpose-built racetrack, just loads of roads and all this sort of stuff. So you're looking at the likes of Lotuses, you look at the Coopers, the Listers, the classic Ferraris. These are cars which cost 10, 15, 20 million pounds to the owners, and they're racing around this beautiful track. And then on Sunday, we kick it off with the Chichester Cup, which is for basically what is now the Formula Ford, but back then was called the Formula Junior. This is a huge range of different manufacturers, different chassis builders, different engines, all front-wheel drive. And there's often a lot of very tail-happy action because they only weigh sort of 100, 150 kilos. There's nothing to them. And then, of course, we've got the second part of the Barry Sheen Memorial Trophy, which features a Le Mans-style start. So these riders, some of them, shall we say, are not at their peak of fitness, will run to their bikes, kickstart, again, bikes that are not necessarily at the peak of their fitness, and hopefully, if it all goes well, they'll all pull away fine. Following that, we'll have the Richmond Trophy. Now, Richmond Trophy is possibly one of the fastest races of the weekend. This is all the F1 cars. So right at the start, when you had Alberto Ascari and Enzo Ferrari, the famous drivers that we now associate with the start of Formula One, they'll be racing these classic cars. And it's just incredible. Then you've got the Brooklands Trophy. This is one of the ones that I'm looking forward to because you've got the Fraser Nashes, the Bentleys, the Bamford Martin before they became Aston Martin. And they'll be racing. These cars are very heavy, powerful, but not by to modern standards, but they don't really have brakes or handle or power steering or ABS or power assisted clutch, anything like that. And these drivers do so well in just getting the cars round. But out of those, Ross, which of those takes your fancy and makes you really want to watch it?
Oh, what a question, Josh. I mean, what doesn't take my fancy is the thing you should be asking, to be honest. It is, again, the lineup is just... I can't even, put it into words. It is just phenomenal. The revival's provided once again. The Barry Sheen Memorial Trophy, the way you worded it with the old boys on the bikes, that put a little smile on my face, so that might be entertaining. But of course, classic bike racing, what's not to love there? The Richmond Trophy, again, proper old school F1 and F2. That'll always be a good one to see. Again, there's so much on though. And the classic GTs going around as well. You look at the Whitson Trophy when you've got all the prototypes. You look at the St Mary's Trophy as well. We've got the classic British saloon cars. It's just such a phenomenal lineup. And honestly, I think the better question to ask would be, what would I not be looking forward to? Then what am I looking forward to the most? Because it is just a spectacular lineup. And again, if you're lucky enough to go to the revival, these are just things that you can't miss. There are just some things here which are just, will be once in a lifetime experiences almost, because it's just going to be that special to see them out on track. Seeing these old cars, these priceless machines, legendary vehicles, going wheel to wheel once again. It is a special experience that I don't think you can often put into words. For me, though, if I really had to choose, I mean, the RAC Club TT. That is a big competition there. You know, you've got the 250 GTO, the DB4 GT, the AC Cobra, and Porsche 911s, as you said, going. And I'm an absolute sucker for classic GT cars. I think it is some of the best racing you can get on the planet. So I think if it had to be anything, for me, RAC Club TT or the Barishi Memorial Trophy, I think they are. I think they're looking very, very strong. You know, they've got a fantastic lineup. They're, you know, running in a format which is brilliant as it is. But again, it is something that I don't think you can really miss anything. It's just too good to miss.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the one that really takes my eye is actually the one that's taking place right at the end on Sunday evening, just as the sun is starting to set. We closed the cockpit 50s GT cars, racing in a 25-minute race that will start in the day and finish at night. The idea is it's reliving what was happening in the 50s at Goodwood, where we had these 9-hour endurance races, which started at midday and finished at 9 p.m. through the night. And don't forget, these cars are not modern LED xenon headlamps. These are the terrible headlights where you can barely see what's going, you know. And, you know, so you'd expect the likes of MG Midgets, Jaguar E-Types, Cobras, and stuff like that. And as the track temperature drops, these drivers will have to deal with that using the old machinery. But this is what Goodwood Revival is all about. This is the whole event is basically designed to ship you back to the 50s and 60s. Just after the war had ended, the ration had just finished. I'm sure a lot of you listening probably have lived through this, and you would know the 50s and 60s was a time when everything was amazing, and it's one of those periods where us as youngsters would love to live through. And Goodwood Revival is one of the very few events in the world where we can actually live through it. And the exciting thing about it all, of course, is that you can see almost the whole track from the sidelines. You know, so you'd have all of this racing, and of course it is all streamed on YouTube, which is excellent to watch. And you can go back now and re-watch some of the races to prepare for it. And of course, it will be on motorsport.radio over the weekend as well. So you'll be able to watch it with us while we watch it. But this is just amazing. And of course, have a discussion over on our social media, on Facebook and Twitter, using the hashtag Motorsport Talks. What race are you guys at home looking forward to watching most? Have you been to Goodwood Revival? Are you going this year? Are you taking a classic car? Are you racing a classic car? Because we don't know, of course, who's listening. You know, Plato could be listening. Jensen Button could be listening. They're all going. They could be listening to us right now, and they could be on Twitter. And, you know, you never know. But we're now going to talk about the top 10 things to see and do that I've picked out. Okay. And this isn't to do with the racing. This is the other bits, because it's not just the racing that takes place at Goodwood Revival. It's the event on whole. Okay, so I'll kick it off with this incredible thing where they tell you to come dressed as 60s style. Okay, so you go to the show, you'll turn up, and everyone around you will be dressed in frocks, tweed suits, and I don't know what they wore in the 60s, but those sort of clothes. If I was going, I would, of course, go in a tweed suit with a flat cap, you know, look like a proper...
I'm sure you'd look very dapper, Josh.
I would do my best, definitely. But, yeah, and then there is a competition for the best dressed. So if you are going to Goodwood Revival, do your best, because you could win the competition as the best dressed person. And obviously it's part of the fun, isn't it? Everyone you know, why not? If they're putting all the effort to turn into become 60s, why don't you give it a go? Obviously you can't de-age yourself, but you could do your best, you know. And Ross, what's the next thing on the list of the top 10 things?
Well, next up, number 2, or 3 rather, apologies. We've got the improved layout and accessibility, which of course is a was rather helpful for everyone involved, drivers, fans, anybody going really, tweed suit or not. So we've got new viewing areas. Such as there's now a new viewing area on the inside of Turn 1. The Lavant infield is now bigger, and there's more food, fashion, and other things to experience, as well as some old military vehicles, apparently. So if you're into your military history, that might be something to check out as well. You've got the Festival of Britain at Gate 2, where you can experience the jubilation of summer 1951, as it's been officially put, and you can celebrate Britain's achievements, Britain's culture, and and the end of rationing as well, of course. So you can get all that wonderful food they had back in 1951. Once you weren't eating, not beef and not anything else. And as you can also do stuff in regards to sustainability and craftsmanship. So it's all kind of old style kind of techniques of making things. I'm probably not the person to go to that, to be honest. I've got the I'm not the best handyman in the world, of saying that much. There's also a victory parade on Sunday to relive the 1946 victory parade as a marching column, and vehicles parade all around the track. So that's pretty cool there if you're into that stuff as well. And of course, you've got things such as the Drivers Club. You can get you can relive the Earl's Court Motor Show, that classic motor show from back in the day, where you've got some really, really retro vehicles there. We're talking really getting on now. We've also got this thing called Dig for Victory, where you can see an allotment being farmed, managed and looked after, just like it would have been done during World War II, which is, interesting. I mean, I'm not sure how that will go along at a motorsport event, but it'll be fine. Then there's also a car boot sale on Sunday. Who doesn't love a cheeky car boot sale? And it's an old style car boot sale as well. So it's not like you can go and you can buy a pencil case for about 20p. You can go and buy something, actually kind of more old, I guess is the way I put it. More classic, I think, is the term that would be a bit more suited. But that's just a handful of things that we've got going on as well. So yeah, lots of off-track stuff going on, lots of improved visibility and lots of accessibility as well. So for the fans, it is really, really looking good, and this looks to be a fantastic year to go.
It really is. And of course, don't forget that when the cars racing, you need drivers. Of course, the people who own the race cars, they're not the best racers. I'm sure they'll openly put their hands up and said they've not done racing. You own a racing Ford Cortina, you'd obviously do a bit of racing on the track days, but you're not there. You maybe haven't driven it. So they get people in to drive it, special people who, should we say, are a bit better. People like Jenson Button, one-time Formula One.
Who's that?
And he happens to be the Sky Sports F1 pundit, or one of them. So, he's quite famous for talking on television. And then, of course, you've got Rob Huff. For those who don't know, he's a British touring car champion, a Swedish touring car champion, and a world touring car champion, as well as multiple Macau GP touring car champion. Alex Buncombe, who is an up-and-coming GT driver. He's supposed to be quite good. We've got both Brundle, father and son. Now, I called them brothers earlier on. They are father and son, Martin and Alex Brundle. Of course, Martin Brundle has won a few races in Formula One, and again, his tones come across on Formula One regularly, and Alex Brundle comes across on Formula 2, and he's done a few bits and pieces over the years. He races in WEC now. Then we've got John Eric Verne, who I believe has done WEC, among many other things. He was an F1 driver as well. Andre Lotterer, who I don't know much about, but I'm guessing he's famous. And
he did 2 F1 races for Caterham back in 2014.
Well, there we go then. So he
was an FE World Endurance Champion. He's done loads of stuff. He's all right, he is.
And then we've got Emanuele Pirro, who again is an old driver and has done quite a few things in the past. Richard Atwood, Jamie Chadwick, of course, who is Formula W champion and one of the famous women of the great British racing brands, we say. She's also won Donetta Juniors and the likes of that as well. Andy Prio, of course, who is a former British touring car driver and champion as well as World Touring Car Champion. Matt Neal, who is again a former British Touring Car Champion. And then we've got loads more, including, of course, Rowan Atkinson, Ryan Mason. He does quite well as well, and various others. I mean, there's about 300 drivers taking part over the course of the weekend. So, you know, Ben Collins, of course, who does a lot of very, very historic racing. He's famous for driving the 1920s, 30s cars faster than they went back in period, let alone now. You know, it is absolutely insane. And of course, all these famous drivers, even though we are still coming out of COVID, you can go and meet them, get a picture with them, get a signed autograph with them. They can sign your T-shirt, they can sign your hat. You know, it's not like a normal race where they're away in cocoons. It's such a relaxed event that you can just go up to Jenson Button and go, you weren't as good as Lewis Hamilton at the time. And
whoa.
For example.
All right. It's not the F1 talk show yet, Josh.
And so, yeah, this is one of the highlights, of course, of Goodwood, is the fact that you are rubbing shoulders with the famous. Of course, I remember when I went to Goodwood Festival Speed and Sterling Moss walked past me. Not once, but twice. On the way to the toilet, which was quite interesting. So, you know. But,
like claim to fame, Sterling Moss went to the loo past you.
Yes, it is actually. Like, you can't get much more famous than that, you know.
Yeah, you know.
So, but Ross, what else is happening in the event?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, you might want to head over if you're a fan of old kind of military history, military vehicles and stuff. And, well, you might want to head over if you're a fan of aviation as well, because they've got the Freddie March Spirit of Aviation kind of parade going on. So you can go around and see some lovely aircraft. And they've got, if my French doesn't fail me here, which it will, I don't speak French, they've got a Concours d'Elegance for a pre-1966 aircraft. Yeah, I know, I can say one thing, probably incorrectly. If there is anyone French, tell me how you pronounce that, please. Anyone French watching? But yeah, so if that's a kind of a, well, it's just I assume it's like an elegant concourse for 1966 and before aircraft. So if you're into more classic aviation, you might want to head over and check that out as well. I'm going to be brutalist here. I'm not an aviation expert, but yeah, lots of classic planes. You know, you can go around and have a look and get up close and personal as well, I believe. I think, not entirely sure, I think they might be doing a bit of an air show as well with some of them, not, you know, full Red Arrow style, but just doing a flyover. But yeah, so if you're, again, into your classic aviation, the Freddie March Spirit of Aviation might be for you. Don't be afraid to go over and check that out.
Exactly, yeah. And just to highlight, it's basically, when you go to a car show like the Salon Privé and you've got these concourses with these lovely turned out cars, Revival have basically gone, everyone does a car concourse, but no one does a plane one. So they've gone and done a plane version of it. So you'll get to see these lovely planes. In the past, we've had DC-5s, Lancaster bombers, Hurricanes, and they're turned out beautifully, sparkly, everything. It's weird, but it's really good. We've also got the Revival High Street, which is pretty much as it says on the tin. You walk down a 1960s British high street with sort of pop-up shops that on the outside look like they're from the 1960s, but actually inside they show they're basically just selling the normal clothing, you know? So maybe you'd expect something like Barbour, the posh sort of brands, because let's face it, Goodwood isn't a poor place to go, shall we say? Is the best way to describe that. You know, you're not going to see Reebok and Primark there, are you? You're going to see more Barbour, Ralph Lauren, Lacoste, all of that sort of stuff. But everything's done to make it look like it's from the 1960s, which of course Ralph Lauren wasn't, and Barbour was, but again, even more out of the price. And then you can also buy the unique Goodwood Revival memorabilia. So like classic badges, classic tweed suits if you forgot yours at home. You know, or you could buy a frock, for example, for the ballroom dance that's happening on Saturday night. God. And
You need me to rescue you here, Josh, because you talk too much about frocks and things, haven't you?
Yeah, the producer just made me laugh in my ear.
Well, I'll carry on, so you can go down and buy your tweed suits and your frocks. I mean, you were basically finished there, to be fair. But yeah, if you've committed an absolute sin and you've turned up you've turned up in your 80s jeans and your disco shirt, and you get angry looks from the entire crowd, you could go and buy a tweed suit so you don't look out of place.
Exactly. And then do you want to continue on and finish off?
Oh, go on then, if you insist.
Okay.
Of course. What classic historical event would be finished without a fun fair? There is a fun fair, so you can keep your kids occupied if they get bored. You can keep yourself occupied if you get bored, which you won't because it's an amazing event. But there is the Experience Revival Cinema. So there's a classic style cinema. I assume it's just going to be in a big tent or something, but lots of classic films under there by the looks of things. Should be fun. There's the Butlins Rock and Roll Ballroom. So you can go and listen to some Elvis while he was still skinny and pretend you're living back in the 50s. Got the Bonham's Auction House as well, which we'll get onto in a moment. That is something you cannot miss. I'll just say that much. Of course, there's a fairground. You've got your classic fairground stuff, your Helter Skelter, your big wheel thing. I can't remember what they're called. You know what? Ferris wheel, that's the one. The big swing thing that goes around like that as well. I went to lots of fairgrounds when I was a kid, as you can tell. There's also shopping stalls, so there's more shopping stalls, but more kind of fairground stuff, so that will be more kind of candy floss. You're looking at more kind of food, so maybe a bit more marketed towards children instead of an adult who's forgotten their tweed suit. But it's a fun fair. Who doesn't have a fun fair?
Well, exactly. And yes, I can tell you went to loads of fun fairs. Mind you, to give you credit, I went to fun fairs, but you never know what they're called. You go on them because they look fun. But
yeah, exactly.
Called,
big wheel, big spinny,
exactly
slide.
The chair thing that looks like you could die from it, and then you've got where you sit on a carpet to stop yourself getting burns, and then you've got it's as I said, it's not just the racing Goodwood Revival. It is everything from the 60s is back there. And I said, no matter how old your kids are, your kids are probably, you could have a 5-year-old child walk in, no idea what's going on. He's going to see a fun fair and want to go on it. You could try to explain to him about the 60s and all this sort of thing, but he's not going to want to listen. He just want to go on a fun fair. Go on the fun fair. And the Revival Cinema, from what I've seen of it, it's classic films, so it'll be showing stuff like An Officer and a Gentleman or that sort of thing in a classic style cinema, which is just incredible for those of you that love those old films. I find them a little bit boring.
Oh, Josh. God, you can't insult cinema like that.
But yeah, it is. And of course, the ballroom. Who doesn't want to take part? Do some Charlston, do some tango, do some classic 60s dance, like as if you won Blackpool, as if you're on Strictly Come Dancing, and all this sort of thing.
I could tell you're going to be straight in there, Josh.
Oh, if that was me, I'd take me off the dance floor. You'd have to drag me off.
Oh, I can't.
I'd find someone to join me first, but yes, it'd be amazing. I'd be there and dance on my own, doing the Charleston.
No, as long as you're having a good time, that's the main thing.
Well, that's exactly it. But let us know, of course, on Twitter and Facebook and whatnot, whether you're going. Are you going to take part in the dance? What are you going to wear? Maybe send us a photo of what you're wearing to this show.
The tweed suit.
We'd love to see, because all we can think of is a tweed suit and a frock, and I'm sure there is more 60s style than just a tweed suit and a frock. I mean, I'm guessing people wore.
I'm pretty sure they had jeans by the 1960s. So you might see someone turning up in a pair of jeans, But so please let us know. #Motorsport Talks, of course. But we're now going to talk jaw-dropping beauty, dreams, and a little splash of James Bond. And that's just me. I couldn't resist. The jokes are coming thick and fast, mate.
Oh, they are. You could tell I was a tour guide. And but we're going to the Bonham's Auction House, which is something. This is like a highlight of a show, even though it's not part of the show. And it gets you a chance to watch the auction take place and just look at a car wistfully and wish you'd won the lottery the night before, because there's no real other way of being able to earn money enough to pay for some of these cars. I mean, some of them are just ridiculous, and we're going to talk through some of these incredible cars that are up for auction. And one of the first ones on there actually is the Aston Martin V8 Vantage Saloon. It's one of the lowest mileage models available. Okay, and it's valued at about £130,000. So think back to the 80s, big V8 under the bonnet, big Aston Martin. It was a nice car. Everyone loved to own an Aston Martin back in the 80s. You get a chance to as well, with just a small fee of £130,000. And then after that, we go back to the 50s with the Bentley R-Type Continental Sport Saloon. Now, this is a beautiful coachwork built car by Mulliners. It's, this is a pinnacle of British motoring. After that, everything else went downhill. This is the classic car everyone wants to own, an old Bentley. Everyone wants to own an old Bentley. It's the sort of thing you'd get married in, right? This is only one of 208 built and one of only 6 still around today. And it's actually really cheap, right? You can actually buy this on the budget. It's only £1 million, all right?
And that's at the start of the bid, and that's what they reckon.
Yeah, that's the start bit. That's the no reserve section. It has to go higher, obviously, to make a sale. But why not get your hands on an old classic Bentley? What else is there, Ross?
Well, there's the first one, a 1958 AC Ace Roadster, still with the original engine as well. Only one of 21 built. If you're looking for rare machines, that's your one. Bidding's going to start at about 150 grand. I mean, in comparison to the Bentley, that's basically pocket change. So, I could have a tenner lying around somewhere. But also got a 1926. We are really getting back now, aren't we? 1926 Bentley 6.5 litre Le Mans Tourer, going from they reckon it's going to start bidding between £400,000 to £600,000 for a car from 1926, which is still running, which is not bad. I wouldn't recommend taking it on the road though. Probably won't do too well. Also another Bentley in a 1931 4/8 litre 2-seater 4-litre chassis with an 8-litre engine, hence the name. That's going to go for £500,000 as well. Now here we go. This is the one that has caught my eye the most. A 1958 Ferrari 250 GT Berlinetta. Now that is a car. Only 250 built in the world. Here's a little bit of trivia actually about this car. They started the number, so it's the 250 GT because they only built 250 of them. But they wanted to seem like they built a load more. I think it was so they could enter it into I think it was so they could enter it into Le Mans actually or something, because they needed a certain amount built. So what they did was they painted the numbers on the side of the car, but they just started at a random number and then just missed. They started at like 30 or something and then like ended on like 517. So it made it seem like there was a load more than there actually are. So there's only 250 of them in the world, but you might have a number that's higher than 250. It's lying. That was Ferrari's cool little way of tricking you. That's only going for £450,000. I know that's a lot of money. You can buy a house for that, but for a 250 GT, that I'm surprised it's that cheap. I mean, that's where it's going to start, and if anything's going to go up high, I reckon it'll be that one, because that is one hell of a machine. But that's very exclusive, very pretty, very very nice Ferrari. And there's plenty more in stock, isn't there, Josh?
There definitely is. And if those of you sitting at home going, an AC Ace, I haven't heard of that. What the AC Ace is basically an AC Cobra, but with a 2-litre engine from Bristol rather than the Shelby engine under the bonnet. So it's the Cobra, but without the flared wheel arches and the big V8 under the bonnet. It's a nice little sports car, and it's one of those I've always had a little soft spot for, because it's very much forgotten. No one really knows about it. But when I said in the intro to this section about James Bond, well, we're going to get it now. The Alpina Z8 Roadster. Now, the BMW Z8 was a car that was specifically built for James Bond. I can't remember which James Bond movie because it was one of the awful ones. Sorry for those of you who are James Bond fans. But this car was used in the James Bond film, okay, which is just like, how much more do you want a car? Well, it's been driven by Pierce Brosnan. Okay, let me have it. They've only been 550 built worldwide. So not just UK, worldwide, only 550 of them have been built. You probably think, well, since it's 2003, half of them are gone now. So you're probably looking at about 200 worldwide for this BMW. It's got a 4.2 M5 V8 under the bonnet. It's basically a Z4 with a big, it's an amazing car, looks amazing, and it's only £250,000. So, it's affordable. It's the same price as your Lamborghini Aventador or your Ferrari 812 Superfast. It's stuff like that. It's really affordable. And then we've got one of the rarest, weirdest, and quite possibly most unique vehicles ever seen. Right? I have never seen one. I didn't know it existed, and it's you've got to look it up to understand what it looks like. But it's a Range Rover Series 1 shooting brake. It's basically an estate version of the Range Rover, of which 6 were built as an ambulances, but this is the only one that is being converted back as a road-going car. And it's £100,000, which may seem a lot for a Mark 1 Range Rover, but bearing in mind this one, only 6 of them were built, and this is the only one that's actually built to be a car. So, how much more do you, it's Britain all over in it. It's classic British. It's amazing. It never breaks down because it's British. Nothing ever breaks down from Britain. We are the most reliable cars in the world, especially the Range Rover. It never broke down. And, it's, I think people want them more than they want a Rolls Royce, for example.
I mean, Josh, to be fair as well, you're going to have the most unique Range Rover in your upper middle class estate if you get that one. So, if you live in a decent-ish area, that might be one to show off to your neighbours.
Well, exactly. And then, of course, we've got a car that I actually had on my wall. I had a 118 scale on my shelf, and I had a 143 scale of as well, because it is the Jaguar XJ220, which I still maintain is one of the most beautiful Jaguars ever built, right? A lot of people may go against it, the fact that history says that it had got a Metro engine under the bonnet and it didn't have the V12 that was originally built, and it's too big and it's got brakes made out of wood and it's got a Ford dashboard. But it's a 220 mile an hour twin turbocharged monster, and it's £500,000. But if you want to turn up to your supercar shows, with your mate's got his Lamborghini, you turn up in Jag, I can guarantee you'll be the one that get more looks, and there'll be so many ladies going after you in that as well, especially if they know their cars. And then we've got the 1956 D-Type 2-seat racer. Now, this has got an incredible history, as it has raced at Le Mans, Spa, Mille Miglia, and Goodwood in period. You think of a history of a car, and a car has raced at...
I think this car might have won the Mille Miglia as well, actually. I think it did win that. I mean, I don't know if it was this specific model, but I'm pretty sure a D-Type did win. And obviously a D-Type won at Le Mans, didn't it? So
it was mainly D-Types and Mercedes that won the Mille Miglias.
Yeah.
The Mille Miglia Sterling Moss won, of course, in that Silverado Mercedes. But if you don't know what a Mille Miglia is, it used to be it still runs, but not quite to the same specification.
It's not 100 miles an hour down country roads anymore.
Yeah, it was back in the 50s, a 1,000-mile race across Italy using open public roads, and your job was to get there as fast as possible. And it's quite scary to think that you could be doing 150 down a road you don't know what there is, right? It's, it was just an incredible car. And of course, that's just a highlight. There are over 400 lots to be sold at this auction with memorabilia, number plates. We've got caravan, we've got, trailers, we've got pedal cars, bikes. We've got everything being sold at this Bonham auction. Of course, you can watch the live stream on YouTube. You can go online and register for a bid. You don't have to, as far as I'm aware, you don't have to pay for the bid. You could just bid, say, the XJ220 for £3 and say you bid for it. That's your claim to fame. You've bid for the XJ220 that went for £500,000. You were almost there. You were just off it. But I love the Bonhams auction, especially at Goodwood and all this sort of thing, because it's an incredible, the cars you see on there, you look at them, it's like, well, I know I looked and there was a Renault 4 CV rally car being sold for about £30,000. Never knew one of them existed. I thought Citroen did the 2 CV, but apparently Renault did something similar as well. But so out of the whole show then, Ross, I've got a difficult question for you. What is the highlight of that whole show, the whole weekend?
I told you the on-track action was hard enough to choose. Now you give me the whole show. You don't know my job easy, do you, Josh? Obviously the Bonham. I've probably got about 20 quid in my bank account at the moment. I don't think I'll be bidding on anything. But there's a very nice selection of cars to go and look at. Of course, the fun fair. I obviously went to loads of fun fairs. I'm a fun fair expert. I think it'll be fun just for a laugh. I think the Freddie March Spirit of Aviation would be quite cool as well. I mean, again, I'm not an aviation expert, but coming from an outside perspective, I think that'll be all right. Again, though, the on-track action, it's classic racing, and it's not like a lot of classic series are where everyone kind of takes it a bit easy, kind of backs off a little bit because they don't want to wreck the car. These guys are on it. You've got former professional racers going. You've got world champions showing up, and they will be going flat out in machines that haven't properly turned a wheel in anger in years, and it will be such an amazing spectacle. So I think it's gonna be obviously the on-track action. I was at the Grand Prix this year. I've probably told this story on the F1 show a million times. I was at the Grand Prix this year, and I was stood on the old pit wall, and they had the GT historic master. It was 60s GT cars. That was some of the best racing all weekend. I was stood there absolutely loving it. It was brilliant because they were obviously it's not as quick as an F1 car, of course, but the racing was just so much fun. Goodwood Goodwood's a great track as well. So, it will be good racing at a good track. So it's obviously the on-track action's got to be one highlight. Off the track, I'd say, I think the Revival Cinema looks quite cool here. I've got a cinema near me that's, it doesn't, show classic films. It's not like an exclusively classic cinema, but it is like an old cinema, and it's lovely in there. And while I would be surprised if they, it wasn't just a projector and a tent. You can still, get that feel of an old cinema. You can still, enjoy some, old films from the 50s, from the 60s. So I'd say, yeah, I think the fun fair is going to be quite cool. And of course, Bonham's auction as well. Where else in the world are you going to see a Ferrari 250 GT Berlinetta starting at £450,000? I think, did Chris Evans have one and he paid like $2 million for it or something? I think, some famous person had one that they paid a lot of money for. It will not be going for £450,000. That's going to be above $1 million at least. So just the small internal classic Ferrari fanboy in me is spotted that, and it's like throwing a dog a bone, isn't it? On track action, of course, that's the obvious highlight. But off the track, fun fair. I think the cinema looks quite cool. And as well, the Bonham's auction. Those guys are always great. They always show up to these events. They're always brilliant. And once again, it's looking like a fantastic lineup.
Yeah, for me, the St Mary's Trophy immediately, purely because I've seen a couple of those races, and then They're regulars at the members' meetings events, which normally happen at the start of the year. Members' meetings happen in about a month's time. And basically, you get touring car drivers driving classic cars, and they are power sliding them like they're their own cars, and they're not. You know, I mean, I remember Andrew Jordan power sliding the Mini around the corner up the inside of Gordon Shedden in a Ford Galaxy 500. You know, how often will you get to see Andrew Jordan and Gordon Shedden race side by side in two completely different cars? And it's all this sort of stuff. And I said the St Mary's Trophy is just an absolutely amazing race. It always is. There's always noises, sounds, the classic cars, the history behind the cars, on the whole calendar, the whole list of races over the 3 days, the history behind the cars themselves. You know, how I started to work out how many trophies the cars had held, and I got to 1,000 trophies, and I wasn't even halfway through the starting list. It just shows you how big this event is. Bear in mind, you know, you're looking at, I'd say, 2,500 trophies the cars have won that are racing. You know, that's just scary. Off track, of course, you can't not mention the ballroom. I mean, we're thinking Chubby Checker, Let's Twist Again, Elvis Presley, Bruce Wayne.
Oh, Josh, I can just see you now in your Tweed.
Oh, it would just be, you know, it would just be a proper good party. You know, and the dancing would just be amazing. It'd be one of those really beautiful moments where it would just stay with you forever. It's free as well, which is good. So that's obviously, we always love a bit of a free event, of course. Yeah, I mean, it's not free to get into the Goodwood Revival, of course. The Goodwood Revival is about £150.
There was so much hope there. What? It's free? Oh no, it's £150. Well, everything in it is free. You just have to pay to access everything in it.
Exactly. I can tell you though, there aren't many tickets left. So if you've listened to us today and you're thinking, oh my God, I've got the weekend free, I'm going to go and do this. Do it now. Go online, buy tickets now. Okay.
What you could do is take a very unprofessional approach and sneak under the fence, but you didn't hear that from me.
Exactly. Or you could watch it at home and regret the fact that you didn't buy it now. You know, max out those credit cards, do whatever you want to do. Do it, honestly. I have wanted to do Goodwood Revival for years because it's just such a unique event, you know, but it's just do it. Just book the tickets. It's one of those things you have to do. I can guarantee you, right? But unfortunately, that's it for Motorsport Talks this week. Thank you for anyone listening. And as always, it's been a fantastic show. And my name's been Josh. He's been Ross next to me, the beautiful Ross himself. And of course, next week, we'll be going back to normal, back to modern day motor racing. And more importantly, BTCC from Cross. Good night.
Is Motorsport Radio.